"You've been getting home late again." That was how it started. Not with a fight, not with a slammed door or raised voice. Just that sentence, laid soft on the table like an accusation disguised as concern. Cheryl didn't look at me when she said it. She was stirring her reheated chicken pot pie, the one she used to make from scratch, but now just microwaves and sets aside like a routine chore. I was still in my work boots, dust from the Patterson site clinging to my jeans, grease stubbornly tucked beneath my fingernails. The clock on the wall read 9:34 p.m. Not unusual. Not for a man trying to land the biggest contract of his life. I muttered something about deadlines and equipment delays, then rinsed my hands in the sink. She didn't press further. That was new. 15 years of marriage teaches you to read the things that aren't said. Her silence wasn't neutral. It was studied, focused, the kind you apply when you're hiding something and testing whether the other person has noticed. She picked up her wine glass, a third, maybe fourth pour, and took a small sip. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She flipped it over fast, screen facing down. I caught the flash of the notification before it disappeared. Just a first name, Wayne Hoffman, my best friend of 15 years, my business partner, the man who co-signed our first line of credit when Ironwood Forge was just an idea, scribbled on a napkin over beers and dreams. He called, she said casually, almost too casually. Wanted to know if we're still on for the barbecue this weekend. I dried my hand slowly on the dish towel. Yeah, tell him I'll bring the steaks. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Her fingers grazed the base of the wine glass like she was listening for music only she could hear. Then her phone buzzed again, and this time she didn't look at me. Just turned the phone over, scanned the message, and smiled. Genuinely, like she'd just read something warm, intimate, familiar. Just Jennifer from book club, she said. Didn't ask. She offered anyway. I nodded, walked past her, and climbed the stairs toward the shower. Each step felt heavier than the last. Not from exhaustion, from something else. That old construction site instinct in my gut. The one that rises when measurements are off or a load is misbalanced. It's a whisper, not a scream. Something's wrong here. Pay attention. I'd ignored it too many times before. I wasn't about to make that mistake again. We met on a job site, summer of 2010. Spokane was dust and diesel that year. Every afternoon, heat thick enough to choke a man, air filled with the clang of steel and the rumble of loaders. I was subcontracting excavation work. Wayne was site manager for a midsize. We crossed paths over a drainage delay and ended up eating lunch on the tailgate of my truck, talking about vintage bikes. That first conversation stretched into weekends, rides through the mountain roads outside Cheney, beers afterward, the kind of silence between men who don't need to fill every space with words. He rode a cherry red Triumph Bonneville. I was rebuilding a '68 Norton from the frame up. What started as nods and shared tools turned into real friendship. 2 years later, when I decided to start Ironwood Forge, Wayne was the first person I called. I didn't have the full capital, just a plan, a reputation, and a stubborn streak. He showed up with a check, 30 grand, nearly everything he'd saved, and didn't ask for control, just a 15% stake and one sentence. Don't screw it up. We didn't. Not at first. We scraped through lean years, bidding small, contracts taking every dirty job others passed up. I'd be in the field 12 hours a day. Wayne would be in the office wrangling invoices and smoothing clients. We built something solid, something real. Cheryl was there for all of it. Back then, she made coffee before I left at dawn and rubbed my shoulders when I came home aching. She didn't complain about the leaky apartment ceiling or the second-hand furniture. She believed in the dream when even I doubted it. I remember her sitting on a folding chair in our first warehouse, reading blueprints by flashlight while I repaired a broken auger. Her hair pulled back, grease on her cheek, smiling, like we already had it made. I remember thinking I'd found both my future and the person to share it with. Wayne, Cheryl, and I. We were a triangle. A strange, dependable one. We had history, war stories, loyalty, but every man has blind spots. Mine were for the people I loved, For those I'd have walked through fire for. I thought I knew where the lines were. I thought they knew too. Turns. Out some lines don't blur and they snap. It started with the book club. Thursdays, always Thursdays. Cheryl used to rotate hosting with a few women from her Pilates class. Nothing fancy. Just wine, a few appetizers, something with brie. But over the past few months, her involvement had ramped up. New outfits, perfume she hadn't worn in years. She'd spend longer in the mirror before heading out, always grabbing her phone before. Her purse. She said they were reading The Night Circus. I never saw the book. Wayne began stopping by more, too. Dropping off invoices, he said. Picking up a tool he lent me months ago. Once, he let himself in with the spare key while I was still in the shower. Claimed he thought I was out on site. Cheryl laughed it off, said he was just being Wayne. I let it slide. Because that's what you do when the people you trust start acting off. You slide past it. You make excuses. I'd come home late after. 12 hours on the Patterson bid, and Cheryl would already be asleep on the couch. Phone face down, screen still glowing when I picked it up to put it on the charger. Sometimes there were notifications she'd swipe away fast, messages from Gen B or book club girls, all at odd hours. Once she jolted upright when I walked in, locking her screen so quickly it felt rehearsed. And then there was the jacket, Wayne's leather jacket, the one I bought him for his 50th. Cheryl found it in the garage one afternoon and hung it in our hall closet like it belonged there. She said he must have left it behind when he stopped by. I didn't ask. Why she didn't just give it back? The knot started then. Not panic, just a slow twist deep in my gut. The kind you get when a machine sounds wrong before it breaks. I'd felt it before, during a failed safety inspection, a bad subcontractor, a client who wouldn't return calls. And now I was feeling it at my own dinner table. Still, I kept telling myself I was tired, paranoid, that I was working too hard and looking too hard. I buried myself in schedules, equipment checks, permits, anything to ignore that something sacred in my house had shifted, and I already knew what it was. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. The Patterson contract came through that morning. It was the kind of win you raise a glass to, the kind you carve into a timeline and say, that was the moment it all changed. I left the site earlier than usual, feeling good. Bought a bottle of Cheryl's favorite red from that little shop, near the lake, the one she always said reminded her of Napa. I figured we needed a night in, something real, something grounding. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun had dipped behind the ridge, painting the house in that quiet orange light that always made it feel a little more like home. Cheryl's car was there, lights on in the upstairs bedroom. I stepped inside, set the wine on the counter, and called out. Nothing, no reply. The air was still but not peaceful, like the house had taken a breath and was holding it. I spotted her phone by the sink, unusual for her. The screen lit up just as I reached for it. One message, one name, Wayne. Left my jacket upstairs. Don't tell Ron I stopped by. I didn't react, not with shock, not with anger, just silence. Something heavy slid into place behind my ribs. Like a gear locking in, I took the stairs slowly, my boots quiet against the wood. The bedroom door was cracked open. Cheryl was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding it. That jacket, black leather, broken in with a faded logo on the shoulder from the motorcycle shop in Idaho we found on that first cross-state ride. The jacket I gave Wayne for his 50th. She looked up and saw me. Her face didn't shift, didn't lie, just froze, like she'd been caught in a photograph she couldn't tear up. I held up the phone, screen still glowing. You left his jacket, I said. Not a question, not a challenge. She didn't flinch, didn't stammer, just held the jacket like it weighed more than leather ever could. You're always working late, she said quietly, her voice so low it felt like it was meant for someone else. He was there. I nodded once, not slowly, not with drama, just acceptance. The kind you reserve for death or news you knew was coming. I need some time, I said. She looked like she wanted to reach for something to say, something to throw, something to pull me back with. But there was nothing left. I turned. walked out. And for the first time in my marriage, I didn't feel like I was leaving anything behind. The drive to the office that night felt longer than it should have. The city passed in a blur of sodium lights and blurry taillights, my hands gripping the wheel like they were trying to hold on to something solid. When I got there, Ironwood Forge stood dark, hulking and silent in the moonlight. I parked in the back lot, didn't bother turning on the lights. Inside, the air was stale with dust and old ambition. I made my way to the corner office, the one Wayne and I had shared for nearly a decade. Our initials were still etched into the glass door, a holdover from when it felt like we were building something immortal. I unlocked it, stepped in, and closed the door behind me like I was sealing a tomb. The bottle of whiskey was in the bottom drawer. I'd bought it 3 months ago, the day we were shortlisted for the Patterson contract. A bottle of Glenlivet 25. Not cheap. I'd told myself I'd open it when we signed the deal. We'd signed that morning. I poured 2 fingers into a glass, but I didn't drink it. I just stared at the amber liquid, catching slivers of moonlight from the blinds. There was something cruel about it now. This was supposed to be a victory toast, but Cheryl was holding Wayne's jacket upstairs like it meant something. And I was here, alone, breathing in betrayal through every breath. It wasn't rage that took hold of me. It was clarity. The kind of clarity you only get when everything you trusted collapses, and you're forced to see the blueprint beneath the facade. I'd spent my life building things, structures, systems, partnerships, love, and now I knew how to disassemble one too. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to break things or confront them in tears. No, this wouldn't be loud. This would be careful, surgical, quiet. I opened my laptop, logged into our corporate shared folders, then opened a new browser tab, one I hadn't touched in over a decade. My lawyer's private number was still saved in my contacts. I pressed call, and with the first ring, the gears began to shift. 2 mornings after the jacket, I sat across from Harold Kessler in his glass-walled downtown office, the city humming behind him like it didn't care that something was coming apart. Harold had helped me set up Ironwood, forged from the ground up. A sharp man, older, wore suits like armor and asked few questions unless they mattered. He flipped through the folder I'd handed him, brows twitching but voice calm. "You want to trigger Article 7? I nodded once. "You understand what that does?" "I wrote the clause with you, Harold. I understand it better than anyone." Article 7, a provision buried in our original partnership agreement. It allowed the company to buy out any partner whose actions posed reputational risk to the business. We'd included it for insurance, gambling debts, public scandals, anything that could make clients nervous. Wayne had signed it without blinking. Now I had everything I needed to invoke it. Harold sifted through the stack, screenshots of texts between Cheryl and Wayne, calendar timestamps showing her book club nights matching Wayne's drop-bys, GPS logs from Wayne's truck that placed him at my house more times than I'd care to count, emails that weren't suggestive, they were explicit, and receipts, dinners, hotel charges, even a boutique purchase charged to our joint company account. Harold closed the folder with a soft snap. "You have enough." I leaned back in the leather chair and looked out the window. My reflection in the glass looked older than it had on Monday. Tired, but focused. "Prepare the papers," I said. "I want them served this week. There'll be pushback. I'm not looking for peace. I'm looking for clean." Harold nodded. "We'll draft it airtight." As he walked me out, he paused at the door. "You waited a long time to use this clause." "Didn't know I'd need it," I said. "But I always knew who I was protecting from." Back at the office, I sat alone at my desk and pulled out the one thing Wayne had left behind, a brass pen I'd gifted him years ago when we landed our first 7-figure deal. I turned it over in my hand, then dropped it in the trash. Time to take him out the same way we built this company. Contract by contract, word by word. Quietly, precisely, no rage, just reality. Wayne walked into the office like he always did, like it was his. Rolled-up flannel sleeves, steel-toed boots with the soles worn just enough to look honest. His leather jacket was slung over one shoulder, the same one I'd found crumpled on my bed 3 nights ago. Patterson Project. Updates? He asked casually, plopping into the chair across from my desk. Did they finally approve the additional tonnage? I didn't answer. I reached into the drawer and slid the manila folder across the desk toward him. He picked it up and flipped the flap open. At first, he skimmed, eyes darting over lines he didn't yet understand. Then his brows pulled together. What is this? Article. Nah, I said quietly. Dissolution of partnership due to reputational damage. He sat straighter. Reputational? Are you serious? Dead serious. Over Cheryl? I didn't respond. He already knew. Wayne scoffed and tossed the folder back toward me, the papers spilling slightly. Come on, Ron. This is personal, not business. You can't invoke a corporate clause because your wife. I raised a hand. Don't finish. That sentence. His jaw tightened. I can invoke it because what you did affects the company, our name, our clients, our foundation. And if you want a refresher, read paragraph 6 again. You signed it. He grabbed the folder, eyes scanning. Fast now. This time slower near the highlighted section. You've had this in place for 15 years? I nodded. Because I've always protected what I build, even when I thought I didn't need to. You can't force me to sign this. I don't need to force you. If you refuse, the board can vote. And once they review the proof, I tapped the hard drive sitting on the desk. You'll be removed without payout. He leaned in. You think Cheryl's going to let this happen? She'll back me up. I met his stare. Go ahead, call her. His breath hitched. Just a second, the way a bluff crumples when you know it won't land. I showed her everything, I said. Same documents you're holding, same clause she signed in our prenup. Now his confidence broke for real. You're bluffing. Then you should absolutely test me. He slumped back in the chair, the folder limp in his hands. His mouth opened once, twice, nothing came out. I'll give you 24 hours, I said, rising. Sign the buyout, walk away with something, or don't, and walk into court with nothing. I walked past him and opened the door. This isn't revenge, Wayne, I said as he stood. This is boundaries. Something I should have set years ago. Wayne showed up at my house the next morning. Not the office, not a call. Just walked through the front door like nothing had changed, like he still had keys to a life that didn't belong to him anymore. He found me in the kitchen, pouring coffee. What did you say to her? He barked. I didn't look up. Good morning to you, too. She's not answering my calls. Her sister says she left town yesterday. Where is she? I took a long sip. Maybe she needed time to think. His fist slammed the counter. Don't play games with me, Ron. You threatened her. Told her to choose. No, I said calmly. I didn't threaten anyone. I just showed her the same papers I showed you, and the prenup she signed before we got married. His face twisted. What prenup? The one with the infidelity clause. You know, the one that says she forfeits everything if she cheats. He didn't speak. Just stood there, mouth slightly open like the wind had been knocked out of him. You never knew about it because it wasn't meant for you, I added. But now it matters. He sat heavily on one of the bar stools. Jesus, Ron. There's more. I walked to my home office, opened the filing cabinet, and pulled another folder. I dropped it on the table beside him. A printout of our company's expense accounts. For 3 years, you've been skimming. Little charges, fudged vendor payments, equipment rentals billed to fake projects. I had our accountant go back and check everything. Wayne's face drained of color. $173,000, give or take, I said. You thought no one noticed. You thought it didn't matter. He swallowed hard. It was temporary. I needed cash. For the divorce. For Cheryl. I meant to pay it back. I tilted my head. With what? My money or hers? He didn't answer. His hands were shaking. If you don't sign the buyout papers today, I continued, I'll file a criminal complaint. District attorney already has my statement ready to go. He stared at the folder, jaw tight, chest heaving. She didn't know, he muttered. About the money. She thought I had it all together. She didn't know a lot of things, I said. but now she does. Wayne nodded slowly, and just like that, the last pillar of his performance crumbled. She came back a week later. I was out in the yard splitting firewood when her car rolled into the driveway, slow, like maybe she thought the gravel wouldn't crunch. If she eased off the guilt hard enough, Cheryl stepped out wearing a long coat, and that hesitant expression I'd seen too many times before, the one that begged for forgiveness before the apology even formed. "We need to talk," she said. Set the axe down beside the stump. "About what?" "About us, about what happens next." I didn't move toward her, just folded my arms and let the silence hang. "I've already filed," I said. "The papers are on the kitchen counter." She blinked. Whatever speech she'd prepared crumbled at the edges. "Just like that, after everything?" "No," I said quietly. "Not just like that. After this." She stepped closer, her voice sharpening. "You're throwing away 15 years of marriage without even trying to fix it." I gave a soft laugh. "You already threw it away, Cheryl. I'm just handling the paperwork." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She shifted gears. "What? About the house, your retirement? My lawyer says I'm entitled to half." "Your lawyer should read the prenup again," I said. "Especially the clause about infidelity." Her face went pale. "That was over 20 years ago," she whispered. "It still counts." Her eyes flicked toward the house, toward the yard, like she was searching for something she could still call hers. "I'm not leaving you with nothing," I added. "You'll get the lake cabin, and a settlement, enough to start over, not enough to share with Wayne." Her breath caught. "Wayne? What does he have to do with—" "He's been bought out, and the embezzled money, that's being recovered through the shares I took back. You didn't just lose a husband, you lost your accomplice." She sat down on the edge of the porch like her knees gave out. I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I just picked up the axe again. Clean breaks are quiet like that. 6 weeks after I found Wayne's jacket on my bed, I sat in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the Columbia River, pen in hand. Across from me sat Arthur Bowman, CEO of Drift Shade Limited, the second-largest construction firm in eastern Washington, and his counsel. Between us was a single folder. Inside, the acquisition contract for Ironwood Forge. "One last chance to reconsider, Ron," Arthur said. "Once you sign, it's theirs." I didn't hesitate. I'm not the one who will regret it. The pen hit the page with finality. $17 million, that's what they were paying. Double market value, and all of it clean. I would stay on as division president for 2 years, then walk away. No debts, no shadows, no Wayne. Arthur's assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Bowman, there's someone here to see Mr. Winters." "A Mr. Hoffman." Arthur looked at me. I nodded. Wayne walked in like he still belonged. Same flannel shirt, same boots, same desperate pride behind his eyes. "You sold the company?" he said, voice tight. "Without offering me a chance to buy back in." "I didn't think you had the funds," I said, keeping my tone even. "Last I heard, your embezzled shares were covering your debts." "You son of a—" I stood. "Careful, you're standing on thin ice." He stopped, just stood there staring at the folder like it had burned him. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Actually," I said, collecting my copy, "it is." Later that week, Cheryl found out about the sale, about Wayne, about the money he never had. I didn't hear it from her. I heard it from mutual friends. How she packed her bags after learning Wayne's new job barely paid enough to cover rent. How she'd moved to Seattle to start over. Wayne tried launching a new firm. No one bit. The whispers stuck. About the theft, the scandal, the betrayal. And me? I kept showing up to work with clean hands and a clearer conscience. Turns. Out, you don't need to raise your voice when the numbers speak for you. The air up here smells different. Cleaner, sharper. Like pine and lake water and fresh starts. I built this place myself. Not the house Cheryl got in the divorce, the one with the old wallpaper and the ghost of a marriage echoing in the hallways. No. This is new. A-frame, river-facing, with a wraparound deck and a workshop out back. The cabin I used to sketch out in old notebooks when I needed to believe someday I'd live just for myself. I spend my mornings splitting wood, my afternoons sanding down the 1967 Harley I've been meaning to restore since I was 23. Mornings in metal, solitude and symmetry. It's not lonely, it's earned. The divorce was finalized 9 months ago. The settlement stood exactly as I wrote it. Fair, not generous. She didn't contest it, not once her lawyer read the prenup. Word is she tried staying with Wayne, but he couldn't keep up the illusion. Not without my name on the company. Not with his name circling industry gossip like a vulture. Last I heard, she's in Seattle. Wayne's in Idaho. Small-time outfit, smaller paychecks. Me? I sip my coffee slow. Watch ospreys fly lazy circles over the Columbia. Sometimes I walk barefoot, through the trees just to hear the leaves crunch under something unburdened. Today, my phone buzzes. A message from Thomas. Dinner this weekend? No preamble. No overthinking. Just a son checking in on his old man. I thumb a reply. Always free for you. And I mean it. Because I lost what was never really mine. The loyalty I assumed. The promises I thought were mutual. But I kept what mattered. My son. My name. My peace. Some men climb ladders chasing legacies. Others learn that quiet is a legacy too. And mine? It hums from the engine I'm rebuilding in the workshop. Echoes in the stillness after the trees stop swaying. What's gone was hollow. What's left is everything. It came on a Tuesday, not the storm, not the reckoning. Just a message. One line. Thought we could talk if you're ready. No name, no apology, just Cheryl reaching from the shadow of something she finally had to sit in. I didn't reply. Later that week, Wayne called. New number. I let it go to voicemail. I never listened. I'd built my silence with intention. It wasn't out of cruelty, it wasn't pride, it was self-preservation. A kind of armor you don't see, but feel in the weightlessness of your own chest. Months had passed since the contracts were signed, since Cheryl drove away from the cabin with the settlement she didn't earn, since Wayne packed up his desk and walked out with nothing but the ghost of a company that no longer carried his name. They thought I'd come back, that I'd simmer, cool, forgive. But some damage doesn't scream, it settles into the bones. It changes how you walk, what you carry, and most of all, what you'll never carry again. I still have the prenup in a folder, the company buyout, the audit files, but I haven't opened them since. They're not weapons anymore, they're reminders. That loyalty, once broken, is a one-way bridge. And I chose not to rebuild it. Not because I can't, because I've finally learned I don't have to. Some days I think about what might have happened if I'd stayed silent that night in April. If I'd let it slide, looked the other way, it would have eaten me. Slowly, quietly, like rust inside a beam. Instead, I walked out of the fire they set for me, and never looked back. Now when I split wood, when I rebuild the Harley, when I sip coffee beside the river that doesn't ask anything of me, I think about silence. How it used to feel like loneliness, and how now it feels like peace. Some bridges don't burn with fire. They vanish beneath steady feet and a man who's learned that some silences aren't empty. They're earned, they're whole, they're sacred.